Man, time is weird. Well, I'm not just talking about in terms of getting older or the fact that you lost track of it and missed your bus like a pleb, but in the way that it's impacted video game design over the years and how it can really make or break your game. But attempting to grasp time as a concept has been a staple since the industry's inception. In-game timers, for example, started as a way to carefully manage playtime in arcades to produce pocket money from unsuspecting kiddywinks, but as time has progressed, time as a concept in games has kind of faded away. Don't get me wrong, some developers have attempted to transfer these archaic designs into the home market for some reason. Like, have you ever thought about why there is a timer in Super Mario Bros? Well, it's because this and Mario's lives are stayovers from the arcade elements made to manufacture reasons to insert more money. But I'm not playing the NES Penny Pincher, am I? Well, yeah, that did kind of sound like a ship name, didn't it? Anyway, resetting on death is what adds the initial pressure to gameplay. Timers and lives just lead to failure cascades that don't add anything to the moment-to-moment gameplay, apart from being an accessibility issue for children who make tiny repeated mistakes because they'd have no idea what they're doing because they are kids. Like, have you ever seen a child use a controller? It's like they're throwing fucking gang signs. So the question is, why do timers exist in Super Mario Bros? Well, it's an early sign of cargo cult thinking, where developers insert designs into their projects because that's just the done thing without questioning why. Full video on that crazy concept up here. But thankfully, as time has passed, these designs have been seen less and less. And I can see why, because on face value, holding players to the whims of time can add pressure, force them to rush under strict conditions, and be an accessibility issue, but I'm here to tell you that that might be a good thing. No, not that it's an accessibility issue. What I'm trying to say is that there are ways to harness the pressure-building power of time without strictly using a timer per se, because pressure can be an amazing tool. To delve into another part of my life when I was studying film, let's look at the ticking clock. This is a narrative device that imposes a deadline on the protagonist, which alters how they perceive and tackle their journey's challenges, driving the character and the plot forward. My favourite example of this is Sarah must find her way through the labyrinth in 13 hours or her baby brother will be turned into a goblin. Now, that instance, it is a literal ticking clock, but it can be anything that forces our hero into initial action and wrenches them back to it if they get distracted. It keeps audiences engaged and on the same page, where they're able to quickly understand the severity of new tasks our heroes are faced with and the consequences of wasting time on them. Now, this might be the staple for writing, but it's difficult to translate into the video game medium because of the player's ability to pause, meander, and tackle low-stakes side quests. The idea of urgency and having a timer pushing you forward can lead to a lot of Ludo narrative dissonance, but some developers have paid extra special attention to implementing their ticking clocks in unique ways, which can elevate a relatively simple game into something special. Now, there are many games that are famous for doing this, but the best example for me is 12 minutes. Nah, mate, I think that's famous for another reason. Nah, it's Majora's Mask, of course it is. But before we dive into that, why don't we take some time to hear from our wonderful sponsor? Oh, I can't help but say the word time again, Ludo. It's an episode about time. Just play the ad.
This video is brought to you by PlayTracker, the app that tracks your cross-platform game library, achievements, stats, and more. PlayTracker works by connecting to various gaming platforms and combining all your data in one place. It offers a unified cross-platform social experience, advanced game library labeling and sorting, fun challenges and progression system, and stats about games and the types of players who enjoy them. PlayTracker is for all kinds of gamers, like this one.
My top tags across all platforms are dating sim and psychological horror. I'm sure that says nothing about me as a person.
And this one.
My mate Captain ToeJam96 and I have a lot of games in common. We should tackle some challenges together.
And even me! I'm better than all of you. Unite your gaming multiverse with PlayTracker today and join the official Second Wind Guild to unlock exclusive profile decorations by playing games recommended by us, a group of ostensibly professional gamers with allegedly great taste in games. Ooh.
Yeah, okay, alright, I promise not to say the T word anymore. Okay, so Majora's Mask has been out for a long while. So to cut a long story short, instead of having to save the princess but actually spend most of the game fishing, Link has 3 in-game days before the moon crashes into the planet, killing all of its inhabitants. Now that is one hell of a ticking clock. Here, instead of allowing Link to saunter off and complete side quests at his leisure, the ever-looming threat only gives the player a certain amount of allotted schedule to complete their chosen tasks. 3 in-game days equates to about 54 minutes in real life, so when you enter a dungeon, start a side quest, or simply stop to look around, it counts down the seconds to your impending doom. The addition of the ticking clock device gives a new layer of problem solving that can add a lot of nuance to what might be deemed as simple sequential tasks in other games, making players consider the relevance or importance of their actions in relation to how long it'll take to complete them. Now, this could become frustrating if your progress was completely reset after that 3-day timeline, but luckily, because of plot reasons, once the world is destroyed, you reset back to the beginning, now armed with new knowledge on where to go and what to do. You also retain all major plot items on resetting as well, which stops a lot of the drawbacks of these kinds of loopable settings. Think back to the arcade and how they'd have you play through the same levels over and over and over again just to get another chance to learn the one boss's attack patterns or obtain the necessary items to challenge them. Majora's Mask eliminates that while still maintaining the pressures of a ticking clock. Players want the pressure that ticking brings, but they want the convenience and accessibility that comes from a format that allows for failure or just pausing to think. But at the end of the day, this is still a timer. Yeah, I know, Ludo, I can't help it, mate. Just leave me be, I have to say it. Players can find strict timers frustrating because there's only really one situation where being timed is fun, which is where you barely make it. Losing to a timer sucks and gets very game blamey, and completely destroying a time challenge is just boring. It has a very small margin for creating meaningful moments that most players don't get to experience and just adds undesirable pressure, especially when the game's NPCs are based on schedules and you have to be in the right place at the right time with the correct items and understanding on what to do with them. The question is there a game that manages to maintain this pressure of a ticking clock, have complex NPC schedules, and somehow not use a timer? Well, yes, and its name is Seance of Blake Manor. So as a heads up, unlike Majora, I think a large majority of you will not have played this, and considering it's a detective mystery game, I won't be spoiling any major details here, but do yourself a favour, mate, and go play it. As a general description, it's a game where a detective is tasked with investigating the disappearance at a rural manor 2 days before the titular seance. And during these 2 days, you need to solve a slew of mysteries pertaining to the manor and its many guests to unravel what dastardly and possibly supernatural deeds are afoot. Now, what sets this apart from Majora is that even though there is a similar 2-day time limit to solve the mystery, while also juggling the schedules of about 24 guests and staff, it doesn't have a conventional timer. Here, every action you take to investigate the mundane or the incriminating takes up a singular minute from this timer counting down to the seance, rather than it ticking down in real-time seconds. This allows players to feel the proper pressure that a ticking clock brings, but also allows them to enter an environment, look around and choose their interactions carefully based on the information they have. This also extends to talking to the manor's inhabitants and the many questions you can ask them. Regardless of how much they love to move around and pursue their own wicked deeds, you're never punished for misinterpreting their schedules or attempting to find them, as it's only investigating or confronting them that takes up any time. Because this could be terrible, having to frantically run around looking at every corner of the manor, asking hundreds of questions, but never being given the space to actually take any of it in. It got past this by making one small change to how its clock ticks. And the same sort of praise could be given to another indie darling of last year, Blue Prince. Now, there's a reality where a puzzle roguelite with time limits sounds like an actual nightmare of mine, running around an environment that you can never truly grasp because it's procedural generation, while also attempting to piece together its hundreds of puzzles as quickly as possible. I don't really have the words to express how much you can fuck the fuck off. Sincerely. Yeah, I guess those were the words. But luckily, again, a small change has a gargantuan impact in terms of how the player is requested to manage time. Because the game is so heavily focused on the acquisition and then exploration of individual rooms, instead of having a conventional timer, you have a limited amount of footsteps that tick down per room you step in or out of. Now, this is a counter, not a timer, but it is representative of how much activity you can pursue each day. This maintains the ticking clock pressure of day-to-day exploration, but also gives the player the freedom to take as long as they need on the individual puzzles in each room, regardless of their step count. We speak a lot about breaking away from convention in game design to steer away from cargo cult thinking. Blueprints was made by one developer, the wonderful Tonda Ross, and it was their first ever project with no background in the games industry. That is the exact thing we need to keep this industry moving forward, so more power to you, Tonda, and all other aspiring devs. But this kind of time management isn't just for mystery indies. One of my favorite games of last year, From Software's Elden Ring Night Rain, is completely dependent on time management. Here, they use the titular encroaching night rain to create the ticking clock of pressure, forcing players to take certain risks in order to make the most of their time on an ever-shrinking map. Every interaction and every mistake costs a certain amount of time and has a domino effect on the rest of the session. For example, venturing into the volcanic chasm contains a mighty reward, but might take inexperienced players an entire in-game day to complete, devaluing that reward. It's a balance of where the ring lands, what items you choose to prioritize, and how much time acquiring those items will take in relation to your current position on the map and the time of day. The ability to manage your time is what sets a decent and a great player apart here. Well, yeah, you gotta be good at Souls combat too in general, but the biggest Souls nerds in town would crumble in this game without the proper time management. Well, unless you're one of those Soul Level 1 speedrunners, then hats off to you, mate, and do whatever you want. Now, we've spoken a lot about clocks in this episode and how they do in fact to be ticking, how beneficial of an addition this can be to your game to make it more engaging, but that doesn't mean all games need them. In fact, I think some genres would be completely ruined by their addition. Don't do a cargo cult thinking in reverse now. All games are unique and require unique solutions, but the real question is, what do you think? What game for you has the most interesting interpretation and utilization of time as a mechanic, and what games do you think would be improved by revisiting how they managed time? Honestly, I've said the T word enough for one day, so yeah, alright, Ludo, it's time to say goodbye. She's asleep. Okay, bye guys.